Welcome to the Workforce Center webinar training. The training is going to be on the Customer Code of Conduct. My name is Lisa Snyder. I work in the Workforce Development Division under the Workforce Systems Coordination Office. I also have with me today the two presenters, Susan Talashi and Karen Lillendahl, and I'll go ahead and let them introduce themselves.
Good morning, everyone. This is Susan Talashi. I work for the Workforce Development Division under the Workforce Systems Coordination Office. I'm the EO officer. I take complaints and I coordinate and talk to you guys on a weekly basis.
Hi, everyone. My name's Karen Lillendahl. I'm an Equal Opportunity Officer for DEED in the Office of Diversity and Equal Opportunity.
So we'll go ahead and get started.
Okay, we'll start with a little bit of background. I know you guys are all interested in learning what the Customer Code of Conduct is and why we came up with it. And actually, it was the field who came up with it. We're not responsible for all the excellent work that you've done out there. Some discussion in the resource area of the consistency that we needed to be able to address customers that we were having problems with on a continuous basis, difficult situations, at different workforce centers. And so the managers, the WSA directors, and you working in the resource area said, you know, we'd like some consistency in the workforce center and some ability to be able to hold our customers accountable for their behavior. So we actually came up with some notices, infractions, and suspensions, which you'll see and we'll talk about. There's actually a workplace violence procedure, and then through meetings and feedback from all of you, we actually developed a code of conduct that will be standard throughout the 48 workforce centers and consistent in our service delivery to our customers.
Okay, now we'll take a look at the actual Customer Code of Conduct. As you can see, this is what will be shown to the customer, talking about what they agree to when they get services from the Workforce Center. So they need to participate in the center in a professional, polite, and respectful conduct. They need to make sure their children don't disturb others, cannot be under the influence of alcohol or other drugs, using appropriate language. Again, we point out how important it is that the equipment is used only for job service activities. If we want to go to the next slide, there's a few other things about not bringing food or beverages into the resource area and keeping the cell phone quiet, either muted or have it turned off. This code of conduct, we don't have any specifics right now about where it should be posted or how many times it should be posted. What we're saying is it needs to be in an area that is somewhere where customers can easily see it.
We have thought about actually putting it on the workforce area computer, the CRS, and then maybe having signs and posters in the resource area. Some workforce centers have talked about maybe putting it right at the computer or handing it to a consumer when they sign in to use the resource area, but there'll be some further discussion on that, and it might be a local decision of what's going to work best in your resource area. The next slide we're looking at is the violation of Workforce Center rules incident log. And this log is actually, we probably put this out of order because we probably could have talked about this after the incident. But if you do have a consumer that violates one of the levels 2 or 3 incidents, you can actually, on this log, kind of like you have your complaint form, you can actually put the date down, the customer who you're asking that actually violated one of the levels, their contact information if you have it, and you might not have it, the employee name, the action taken, what violation it was, and the description of the violation. So on this one, you'll actually see a consumer that was suspended for a level 2 violation in Mankato. This individual was using inappropriate websites, using the phone for non-job search calls, and actually was soliciting personal contact with a workforce center customer sitting next to him or her. This was actually a violation that occurred, and we were able then to ask the consumer to leave, and then the consumer cannot come back into the resource area. We cannot mandate that a consumer not come back into a workforce center because they still can receive services if they're program enrolled, but this does give you the ability to tell a consumer that they can't come in the resource area.
One of the forms we made available for you is just a sheet that you can use to give to a customer. You don't really have to have much conversation with them, but to let them know that they need to immediately log off. And then if that happens, I would suggest maybe you also then point out that the code of conduct so they know what violation they made.
We have a participant that's asking, or stating rather, we don't always know a problem customer's name, let alone their contact information. Then what?
Then you can just fill out as much as you know on the log. We realize that you're not always going to know who the person is, but it still would be a good idea to keep some sort of log.
So would you suggest then maybe, can you say a description of that person?
Yeah, a description of some sort would be good, just so you can let your other coworkers know about the situation and the customer, and maybe someone else knows the name.
I think eventually you're going to have to try to find the customer's name, especially if you're doing a resulting action that's like a second offense, where you actually ask the consumer to leave for 5 to 7 days and not come to the resource area, or a suspension that you would have to mail. So we probably have to work a little bit more directly with the workforce centers on that. We haven't run into that yet.
And then another comment was, if it is a program person, find the counselor. So that's actually a really good suggestion. It would be great to have this sign on the welcome survey screen after the checkbox prior to hitting the submit button.
Yeah, that's a great idea. We've actually put that into Minute. We've sent that down to see how long it would take them to do that, because then they would be aware of it, and then they would be able to sign off saying that they did read the code of conduct. Now we'll go over the first violation, which is the violation of, just behavior, inappropriate behavior in the workforce center. That's inappropriate website usage, which we'll hopefully eliminate with some of the scan safe that's coming in March and April. Not actively involved in job search, inappropriate websites, inappropriate use of printer, copiers, and phones, speaking in a manner that's disruptive to others, children disrupted, cell phone use in the area. I know some of you are really strict about making sure the cell phone is out, not having food and beverage, and non-service animals in the resource area. We do allow service animals in the resource area, but animals that are not service-related are not allowed to be in there. The resulting actions of those first violations are just normally, as you would do, is tell the customer, please could you turn your cell phone off, or I've noticed that you're printing 35 pages of a manual and not your resume. You could refer them back and hand them the code of conduct, and then if you needed, you could document the instructions you gave them. If you went back and you saw them printing again 30 pages an hour later, or they were still there, you could say, I'm going to have to ask you to leave the rest of the day because I've already asked you once. You could then hand them the code. If they come in again and they're doing the same exact infraction, you can actually provide them with a notice and then a suspension saying, we've asked you this numerous times. When you're in here, you're not doing job search related information, and so you then would provide the customer a written suspension notice and keep a copy of your workforce center records and provide it on that incident log that we have shown in the prior slide. Each workforce center can determine how many copies they can print per day. Some have 15, some have 10. If you have a slow workforce center and they're printing 10, and they're actually job-related, and then they're still there 30 minutes later, but they're still printing somewhere job-related, I think it has to be the discretion of the resource area person. I don't think that's something we can mandate. That's predetermined at the workforce center, each workforce center.
Okay. And then so if that person leaves, can they come back? Another one is I ask the client as to know how many they need for the job they are applying for, and that really limits the copying.
That's good.
That makes sense.
Yeah, really
that
good.
actually is a really good way to find out, and that way it does limit what they're doing, and so you know exactly what they're copying, or printing rather.
Yeah, now we'll talk about the level 2 violations. These go up a little bit in severity. It is a customer who you believe may be under the influence of some controlled substances or alcohol. It's a customer who is abusive or uses foul language or gestures. Also a customer who may have any verbal confrontations with either staff or other people around him or her. Actions that a staff should take then is, for the first offense, the suspension should be for the remainder of the day. The second offense is for a longer suspension of 5 to 10 days. And then the third offense would be suspension from the resource area for up to 6 months. That is at the discretion of the site manager, so that would, of course, have to be discussed with them. As far as notification, we need notice of the suspension with a copy to the Workforce Systems Coordination Office, and that could go to Susan's attention. And then it also needs to be recorded on the incident log.
So now we're at the level 3 violation, and keep in mind this is a lot of communication with your manager or your site representative. You want to make sure, as a resource area staff, that you're communicating with them, what your recommendation is. If it's a second offense, talk to your site manager and make sure you're communicating. The third level violation is really a severe violation that we hope none of you have to deal with. It's causing or threatening to cause physical harm to any person. It's theft or causing damage to the Workforce Center property or to an employee or customer's property. It's possession of a legal weapon or a firearm, and it's physical confrontation with staff and others. The resulting action by the resource area, the Workforce Center staff, is actually really impertinent just to dial 911. Under no circumstance confront the individual or put yourself or others at harm. It should be immediate suspension of up to 1 year at the discretion of the manager. We should make sure that you provide notice to our office and the Office of Diversity and Equal Opportunity. At that point, our office and Karen's office will communicate, if we have contact information of the name or description, we would communicate that to local managers, so local managers are to know that this individual is banned from the resource area. We'd ask for a copy of the police report and then fill it out to an incident log.
Could you repeat who needs a copy?
Yes, if it's a level 3 violation, you would send a copy to the Workforce Systems Coordination Office, our unit, and then also a copy to the Office of Diversity and Equal Opportunity, which is Kathy Malarkey and Karen Lillendahl's office. You'd want to make sure your managers have it. If you have a copy of a police report, if you did call 911, you want to make sure that you forward that copy on and you keep a copy. Put it on your incident log, and then there is actually a violence threat report form that is part of a deed form, and you can actually fill that form out also.
Okay. Right, there is a policy that deed has that Brenda Tuma is in charge of. And whenever there is anything that rises to the level 3 violation, there is an additional report that needs to be filled out. And site managers should be aware of that.
And then one more comment before we move on to the next slide. I think it is important to share customers' violation among the Workforce Center staff. This is because some of the individuals banned from one location might visit another Workforce Center location.
Right, that could happen. It depends, and for the level 3 violation, yes. The job service managers, the site managers, the WSA directors did not think for level 1 or 2 violations in the beginning that it should be shared across a workforce center. And so that was a decision made by all your managers. We didn't make it here at the Workforce System Coordination Office. So I think definitely for the level 3, that information would be shared. The other program managers who are in your workforce center are aware of this code of conduct, and definitely level 3, that would be shared system-wide.